The accidental meeting. The distress beacon pulsed steadily in the wreckage of the research vessel Horizon's Edge. Dr. Marcus Chen pushed aside a twisted metal panel and crawled from the smoking ruins, his survival suit torn but functional. The emerald sky of Kepler 452 stretched above him, twin suns casting strange shadows across the crystalline landscape. Marcus checked his vital signs on the suit's display. Minor injuries, nothing life-threatening. The emergency landing had been rough, but he'd survived worse during his years as a xenobiologist for the Colonial Science Division. What worried him more was the complete radio silence. The atmospheric interference on this planet was stronger than anticipated. He gathered what supplies remained intact: a portable analyzer, basic medical kit, water purifier, and his research tablet. The standard-issue plasma rifle lay twisted beyond repair. Not that it mattered much. Marcus had always preferred understanding alien life forms to shooting them. The landscape before him defied easy description. Massive quartz-like formations jutted from the ground, their surfaces reflecting and refracting light in hypnotic patterns. Between these natural prisms grew what looked like metallic trees, their branches humming with electromagnetic energy. Everything about this world seemed designed to interfere with technology. As Marcus began his trek toward higher ground, hoping to boost his distress signal, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The briefing had mentioned this system was uninhabited, but briefings were often wrong. Space was too vast, too mysterious for absolute certainties. The first sign of trouble came as a low vibration through the crystalline ground. Marcus froze, his enhanced hearing picking up something his conscious mind couldn't quite process. The vibration grew stronger, accompanied by a sound like wind chimes made of glass and metal. Then he saw them. 3 figures emerged from behind a formation of prismatic rock. They stood nearly 10 feet tall, their bodies seemingly composed of living shadow and starlight. Where solid form should be, Marcus saw swirling voids filled with distant galaxies. Their movements were fluid, almost dancing, as if gravity held different meaning for them. Voidwalkers. Marcus's blood ran cold. Every spacefarer knew the stories. Voidwalkers were the terror of the Outer Rim, creatures that could phase through ship hulls and tear apart entire crews. The Galactic Federation had standing orders to destroy them on sight, classifying them as an extinction-level threat to all sentient life. The nearest Voidwalker tilted what might have been its head, studying Marcus with eyes that burned like white dwarf stars. It raised an appendage that shifted between solid and ethereal, ending in what looked like talons made of condensed dark matter. Marcus raised his empty hand slowly, fighting every instinct that screamed at him to run. Running would be pointless. Voidwalkers could move through space-time in ways physics couldn't explain. "I mean no harm," he said, knowing they couldn't understand but hoping his tone might convey something. The lead Voidwalker made a sound like cosmic radiation given voice. The others responded with similar harmonics, creating an otherworldly chorus. They began to circle Marcus, their forms leaving trails of stardust in the air. Then Marcus heard something else, a different pitch, higher and clearly distressed. His trained ear recognized it immediately, a juvenile in pain. Beyond the adult Voidwalkers, partially hidden behind a cluster of metallic trees, lay a smaller figure. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the unnatural angle of its form, the way its cosmic essence flickered unstably. Without thinking, Marcus took a step toward the injured youngling. The adults immediately closed ranks, their harmonics shifting to what was unmistakably a warning. But Marcus had spent his career studying xenobiology, learning to read alien body language and emotional states. These weren't mindless killers. They were parents protecting their child. "Your young one is hurt," Marcus said softly, gesturing toward the juvenile. "I'm a scientist, a healer. I might be able to help." He slowly opened his medical kit, showing them the contents. The lead Voidwalker's stellar eyes narrowed, studying the instruments. Then, to Marcus's amazement, it stepped aside. The juvenile Voidwalker was smaller than the adults, perhaps 7 feet tall, its form more translucent. What Marcus had initially taken for an injury was actually something embedded in its quasi-physical form, a shard of crystalline rock that disrupted its natural phase-shifting abilities. Marcus approached carefully, aware of the adults watching his every move. Up close, the youngling's distress was even more apparent. Its cosmic form pulsed erratically, and the harmonics it produced spoke of pain across species barriers. "This is going to be tricky," Marcus muttered, examining the wound. The shard had lodged between dimensions, partially in the physical realm, and partially in whatever space the Voidwalkers naturally inhabited. He couldn't use conventional medical techniques on a being made of living cosmos, but Marcus hadn't become the Colonial Science Division's leading xenobiologist by thinking conventionally. "I need to understand your physiology better," he said to the adults, who had drawn closer. He pulled out his research tablet and began sketching mathematical equations, the universal language. To his surprise, one of the adults responded, tracing its own equations in the air with tendrils of starlight. They were complex, multidimensional formulas that made Marcus's head spin, but he began to grasp the basics. Voidwalkers weren't just phase shifters. They were living embodiments of quantum mechanics, existing simultaneously across multiple dimensions. The shard had created a quantum entanglement that locked part of the youngling in solid form, causing incredible pain. Working with the adults, Marcus developed a solution. Using his analyzer's quantum field manipulator, originally designed for studying subatomic particles, he carefully destabilized the molecular bonds of the crystal shard. The adults provided harmonic frequencies that helped guide the process. Slowly, painstakingly, the shard dissolved into quantum foam. The youngling's form immediately stabilized, its cosmic essence flowing smoothly once more. It produced a sound like a pulsar's song, clearly one of relief. The transformation in the adults was immediate. Their defensive postures relaxed, and their harmonics shifted to something almost grateful. The lead Voidwalker approached Marcus, and to his astonishment, gently touched his shoulder with a tendril of star stuff. Images flooded Marcus's mind, not his own thoughts, but shared memories. He saw the Voidwalker's perspective, peaceful beings who lived in the spaces between stars, only attacking when threatened. He saw their fear of solid space dwellers who hunted them relentlessly. He saw their confusion at being labeled monsters when they only wanted to exist in peace. "We've been wrong," Marcus whispered. "We've been so wrong about you." The lead Voidwalker, whom Marcus had begun thinking of as Nova, produced a new harmonic pattern. Somehow, Marcus understood it was a name, or perhaps a concept identity. Shimmer of first light. The other adults were echo of distant quasars and dance of solar winds. The youngling was spark of new stars. As the twin suns began to set, casting the crystalline landscape in shades of impossible beauty, Marcus found himself sitting among beings the galaxy feared above all others. They shared knowledge through mathematics and harmonics, building bridges across the vast gulf of biological and dimensional differences. Shimmer of first light showed Marcus how they perceived reality, not as solid matter and empty space, but as probability waves and quantum possibilities. They didn't destroy ships maliciously. They simply didn't understand that solid space beings couldn't survive having their quantum states altered. In return, Marcus explained human physiology, the concept of fixed-state existence, and why phase shifting through a ship's hull was fatal to its crew. The Voidwalkers were horrified to learn they had been accidentally killing sentients. As understanding grew, so did the realization of a terrible truth. The Galactic Federation hadn't misunderstood the Voidwalkers, they had deliberately demonized them. Shimmer of first light shared memories of first contact with other species centuries ago, before the Federation existed. Those early encounters had been peaceful, even beneficial. But the Voidwalkers lived in the quantum foam between stars, in regions rich with exotic matter and energy that the expanding Federation coveted. It was easier to justify harvesting these resources if the inhabitants were portrayed as mindless monsters rather than sentient beings with rights. Marcus felt sick. How many other species had been similarly maligned? How many genocides had been committed in the name of expansion and resource acquisition? As the alien night deepened, bringing out stars that seemed to sing in harmony with the Voidwalkers' natural frequencies, Marcus made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "I'm going to help you," he told them. "When my people find me, I'll tell them the truth. The galaxy needs to know what you really are." Spark of New Stars, now fully healed, curled up beside Marcus like a cosmic cat. Its presence was surprisingly comforting, like being wrapped in stardust and possibility. But even as hope bloomed, Marcus heard a sound that made his heart sink, the distinctive whine of military-grade engines cutting through the planet's atmospheric interference. The rescue ship had found him, but as the harsh lights of the landing craft illuminated the crystalline landscape, Marcus saw something that crushed his newfound optimism. The ship bore not the silver and blue of the Colonial Science Division, but the black and red of the Federation's Xenocide Division. They hadn't come to rescue him. They had come to ensure no witnesses remained to contradict the official narrative about the Voidwalkers. As soldiers in powered armor deployed from the craft, weapons charging with ominous hums, Marcus stood and placed himself between them and his new friends. The Voidwalkers could have phase-shifted away, but they remained, ready to protect the human who had shown them kindness. "Stand aside, Dr. Chen," the squad leader's amplified voice boomed. "You've been compromised by Xeno influence." Marcus's hand found Spark of New Star's ethereal form, drawing strength from the contact. "The only thing I've been compromised by is the truth." As targeting lasers painted the Voidwalkers in deadly red light, Marcus realized this moment would define not just his fate, but potentially the future of interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. Sometimes the greatest acts of humanity came not from conquering the unknown, but from choosing to understand it. The truth unveiled. The targeting lasers painted crimson death across the crystalline landscape. Commander Sarah Wu of the Xenocide Division kept her weapon trained on the Voidwalkers, while addressing Marcus through her helmet's external speakers. "Dr. Chen, you have 10 seconds to step away from the hostile entities. You've been exposed to Class 9 psionic manipulation." Marcus didn't move. "The only manipulation here is what the Federation's been doing for centuries. These beings aren't our enemies, Commander. They never were." 5 seconds, Doctor." Behind Marcus, shimmer of first light began to sing, not the harmonics Marcus had grown accustomed to, but something deeper, more primal. The very air seemed to vibrate with quantum uncertainty. "Commander Wu," Marcus said quickly, "before you fire, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why our weapons are so specifically calibrated to disrupt Voidwalker physiology? Why the Federation had anti-Voidwalker technology ready before official first contact?" Wu's weapon wavered slightly, countdown suspended. "You have 30 seconds to explain." Marcus felt Spark of New Stars press closer to his leg, the young Voidwalker's trust both heartwarming and heartbreaking. The Federation made contact with the Voidwalkers over 200 years ago. Peaceful contact. But when they discovered the quantum-rich regions these beings inhabit, "That's enough," Wu interrupted. "Classic Xeno-induced delusion. Team, prepare for sterilization protocol." But something unexpected happened. One of Wu's soldiers, a young private whose helmet identified him as James Rodriguez, lowered his weapon. "Commander," Rodriguez said, his voice shaking, "my grandmother used to tell stories about the ghost dancers who lived between the stars, who helped early colonists navigate quantum storms. She said they vanished when the government ships came." "Private Rodriguez, raise your weapon. That's an order." Instead, Rodriguez removed his helmet, revealing a face barely out of his teens. "With respect, ma'am, I joined to protect humanity, not to commit genocide." The moment stretched like taffy. 2 more soldiers lowered their weapons. The Voidwalkers' harmonic song grew stronger, and Marcus realized they weren't preparing to attack. They were sharing. Like they had with him, they were projecting memories, emotions, truth. Each soldier was experiencing what Marcus had, the Voidwalker's perspective, their confusion and fear, their desperate desire for understanding. The quantum nature of their communication bypassed language barriers and spoke directly to consciousness. Wu's voice crackled with tension. Helmets on, mental shields at maximum. But it was too late. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Marcus stepped forward, hands still raised peacefully. "Commander, I know this goes against everything we've been taught. But look at them. Really look. Does this seem like mindless aggression to you? They could have phase-shifted away the moment you arrived. Instead, they're standing here, trying to communicate." Wu's weapon remained steady, but Marcus could see her fingers trembling slightly on the trigger. The Federation's synopsychologists warned about this. "You're all compromised." "Or maybe," said another soldier, Sergeant Lisa Park, as she too lowered her weapon, "we're finally seeing clearly." The situation balanced on a knife's edge. Then Shimmer of First Light did something that changed everything. The massive Voidwalker moved slowly, deliberately, until it stood directly in front of Wu's weapon. It knelt, or performed what passed for kneeling in a being of living cosmos, placing itself in the most vulnerable position possible. The gesture was unmistakable. "I trust you to make the right choice." Wu's weapon shook. Behind her visor, Marcus could see her eyes. Wide, confused, struggling with a lifetime of indoctrination crashing into an undeniable reality. "Stand down," she finally whispered. Then, louder, "All units, stand down." As weapons lowered across the landing zone, Marcus felt a wave of relief so powerful it nearly buckled his knees. But the moment of peace was short-lived. Wu's communicator crackled to life. "Strike Team 7, this is Admiral Reyes. Satellite surveillance shows you've made contact with multiple Voidwalker entities. Why haven't you initiated sterilization protocol?" Wu hesitated before responding. "Sir, the situation is complex. Dr. Chen has made some claims that warrant investigation." "Negative, Commander. Your orders are clear. Eliminate all Voidwalker presence and secure Dr. Chen for immediate extraction and mental reconditioning." Marcus watched Wu's face harden. He knew that look, the expression of someone choosing between duty and conscience. "Admiral," Wu said slowly, "I'm requesting permission to bring Dr. Chen and the Voidwalkers in alive. For study." "Permission denied." "You have your orders, Commander. Any further delay will be considered insubordination." Wu removed her helmet, her black hair spilling free. She looked at the kneeling shimmer of First Light, at spark of new stars still pressed against Marcus's side, at her own soldiers who had chosen truth over orders. "Then I guess I'm guilty of insubordination." "Sir." She switched off the communicator. The silence that followed was profound. Then Private Rodriguez spoke up. "Commander, the Perseverance has a quantum-shielded cargo hold. We cold. Transport the Voidwalkers to safety," Wu finished. "Get them away from Federation space while we figure out how to expose this." Marcus felt hope looming again. "I have research data, recorded memories from the Voidwalkers. Evidence of what they really are." Wu nodded decisively. "Then we move fast. The Admiral will send a fleet when we don't report back." She turned to the Voidwalkers. "Can you understand me?" Shimmer of First Light rose gracefully and extended a tendril of starlight. When Mu cautiously touched it, her eyes widened with wonder as understanding flowed between them. "My God," she breathed. "How many have we killed? How many species have we wiped out based on lies?" The evacuation happened with military efficiency. The Voidwalkers, understanding the urgency, helped by phase-shifting equipment directly into the ship's hold. Spark of new stars refused to leave Marcus's side, which complicated but didn't prevent their escape. As the Perseverance lifted off, Wu's second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Davis, raised a concern. "Ma'am, where exactly are we going? The Federation controls most of known space. The frontier worlds, Marcus suggested, independent colonies that reject Federation authority. They'll give us sanctuary while we prepare our case. Wu was already plotting a course. The quantum storms in that region will mask our signature. But we need more than just sanctuary. We need allies. That was when Shimmer of First Light sang again, and new images filled their minds. The Voidwalkers weren't alone. There were others, species the Federation had driven to extinction or near extinction, hiding in the spaces between known space. The crystalline architects, the nebula weavers, the thought swimmers, all labeled as threats, all simply trying to survive. An alliance of the dispossessed, Wu murmured, the Federation's worst nightmare. The journey to the frontier worlds took 3 weeks through hazardous quantum routes that only the Voidwalkers could navigate safely. During that time, an extraordinary transformation occurred aboard the Perseverance. Humans and Voidwalkers learned to communicate more effectively. The soldiers, freed from Federation propaganda, discovered that the beings they'd been trained to fear were curious, intelligent, and surprisingly gentle. Spark of New Stars became the ship's unofficial mascot, delighting in learning human games and teaching cosmic riddles in return. Marcus worked tirelessly to document everything, building an irrefutable case that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Wu and her soldiers prepared for the military response that would inevitably come. When they reached Haven Prime, the unofficial capital of the frontier worlds, they found a society already skeptical of Federation claims. The colonial governor, Elena Martinez, listened to their story with growing anger. "We've suspected something like this for years," she said. "Too many inconsistencies in the official records. Too many species conveniently labeled as threats just before their territory was annexed." But even Haven Prime's resources weren't enough to challenge the Federation directly. They needed to reach the greater galactic community, to bypass the Federation's control of information. The solution came from an unexpected source. Shimmer of First Light revealed that the Voidwalkers, as beings who existed partially in quantum space, could transmit information directly through the galaxy's quantum communication network, the same network the Federation used for faster-than-light communication. "We can hijack their own system," Wu realized. "Broadcast the truth to every world simultaneously." The plan was ambitious and dangerous. They would need to get close enough to a major Federation quantum relay station to establish the connection. And the Federation, now aware of Wu's defection, had placed massive bounties on all their heads. The next months were a game of cat and mouse across the outer systems. The Perseverance became a symbol of resistance, gathering allies from species and colonies that had suffered under Federation oppression. Marcus's evidence grew with each testimony, each recovered record, each species that came forward with their own stories of persecution. The crystalline architects shared how the Federation had shattered their living crystal cities to harvest their bodies for technology. The nebula weavers told of having their stellar nurseries stripped bare. The thought swimmers revealed how their peaceful telepathic gestures had been weaponized in Federation propaganda. Finally, they were ready. The target was Quantum Relay Station Gamma 7, in the Proxima system. It was heavily defended, but they had something the Federation didn't expect: a coalition of extinct species working together. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Voidwalkers phase-shifted Federation ships into quantum foam. Crystalline architects grew defensive structures from raw matter. Nebula weavers clouded sensors with stellar dust. Human ingenuity tied it all together into a coordinated assault. While the battle raged, Marcus and a small team, including Spark of New Stars, infiltrated the station. The young Voidwalker's ability to phase through security systems proved invaluable. As they reached the quantum transmission core, alarms blared throughout the station. Federation Marines were closing in. Wu's voice crackled over the comm. "Marcus, you've got company incoming. 30 seconds max." Marcus's fingers flew over the console, uploading terabytes of evidence into the quantum stream. Beside him, Spark of new stars began to sing, interfacing directly with the quantum systems in ways human technology couldn't match. "It's not enough," Marcus said desperately. "The Federation will claim it's all fabricated." That was when Shimmer of First Light appeared, phase shifting through the walls with dozens of other Voidwalkers. They formed a circle around the transmission core and began to harmonize. "What are they doing?" Wu demanded over the comm. Marcus watched in awe as the Voidwalkers literally became one with the quantum network. "They're not just transmitting data. They're sharing their actual memories, their experiences. Direct quantum state transfer to every sentient mind in the galaxy." The Federation Marines burst through the door, weapons raised. For a moment, Marcus thought it was over. Then the Marines stopped, their eyes going wide as the Voidwalker memories flooded through the quantum network and into their minds. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, billions of beings experience simultaneously what Marcus had that first day. The truth of the Voidwalkers, the reality of the Federation's crimes, the voices of the silenced species. The Marines lowered their weapons. One of them removed his helmet, tears streaming down his face. "What have we done?" The revolution that followed wasn't violent. It was a revolution of consciousness. The quantum transmission couldn't be stopped or contained. The truth spread faster than light, faster than thought. On the Federation capital world, crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding answers. Military units refused orders. Scientists who had long harbored doubts came forward with suppressed research. Within days, the Galactic Federation as it had existed was finished, not destroyed by force, but transformed by truth. The rebuilding took years. The Galactic Council that replaced the Federation included representatives from all species, including those previously labeled as threats. Trade agreements were rewritten. Military forces were restructured for actual defense rather than genocide. Marcus found himself at the center of a new age of xenobiology, one based on understanding rather than exploitation. He established the Interspecies Understanding Institute on Haven Prime, where beings of all kinds could come to learn about each other. Wu, promoted to admiral in the new Galactic Defense Force, worked to establish protocols for peaceful first contact. Rodriguez, now a captain, led missions to find and aid species still in hiding. Spark of New Stars grew into a full Voidwalker, taking the name Song of Unity. It became the first Voidwalker ambassador, splitting its time between quantum space and the physical realm, building bridges between realities. On the anniversary of that first encounter on Kepler 452's, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Unity station, watching humans and Voidwalkers work together to map quantum space. Shimmer of First Light materialized beside him, its presence now familiar and comforting. "Do you regret that day?" the Voidwalker asked, its mental voice tinged with what Marcus had learned to recognize as concern. Marcus smiled, remembering his terror at their first meeting. "Never. Fear of the unknown is natural. But choosing to understand instead of destroy, that's what makes us human." "And that," Shimmer of First Light replied, its form shimmering with approval, "is why we chose to trust you." As stars sang their eternal songs and new adventures waited in the quantum foam, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Sometimes the most powerful weapon against fear wasn't a gun or a ship. It was the simple act of extending a hand in friendship. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and terrors and everything in between. But it was a little less frightening now that its inhabitants had learned to face the unknown together. In the end, that was humanity's greatest achievement, not conquering the stars, but teaching them to sing in harmony.